thank you guys for joining us. My name is Seth Morris, and I am the VP of Economic Development here at the Chamber. And thank you for joining us today for Technology Business Briefing. We were joking about the winter weather, but hopefully you guys have found a good place to hunker down and stay warm, because as Fred was saying, the good stuff's on the way. So if nothing else, we get to wear our little winter sweaters a little bit longer, so it could be worse. This being the first technology business briefing of the new year, I do just want to say that I personally, I look forward to this event. I imagine many of you do too. I enjoy taking this time, this opportunity to join all of you, to hear a tech-related topic from folks that are just as passionate about the community as we are. And so again, thank you all for joining us. I will say that this event would not be what it is and what it has been since its inception back in 2006 if it weren't for our sponsors. So sponsors, those of you that are out there, I'm going to give you an opportunity to share a few words, maybe tell us a little bit about what's going on in your industry right now, and again, a big thank you to you guys. So let's start with our presenting sponsors. We have two presenting sponsors in order of seniority is in terms of their sponsorship term. Let's go ahead and hand the mic off to L3 Harris. Do we have anyone from L3 in the audience?
Yes, sir. Hi, Seth. Keith, I'm from L3 Harris. So thank you for giving me a moment. And I want to first thank the Chamber for all the work that it does for our community. We've been a partner with the Chamber and they have been so helpful to us, and we just appreciate everything that you folks are doing for the community. Hi, everybody. My name is Keith Shaw. I'm the Director of Human Resources for L3 Harris in Waco, Texas. We have approximately 900 employees, and we're a very well-kept secret in Waco, it seems. So we're really working hard to try to get the information out about our company. We are a Fortune 500 company, number 250 on the list right now, and we're growing. We currently have 54 openings, and I just wanted to share that information with you so that you can spread the news that L3 Harris is growing and has great opportunities. We are in the business of aerospace, defense, and security, and we are just one little piece of a large organization with 48,000 employees located worldwide. So we're hiring, and we'd love for you to share that with anybody who you know might be looking for employment opportunities. And Seth, thank you for giving me a moment to share that with the group.
Absolutely. Thank you for everything that you guys are doing. And I know there's a lot of good stuff in the works too. So thank you. And next up, we have McLean Intelligence Solutions. And I think I saw Julie McKeska was in the audience. Julie, do you have anything you'd like to share? You know what? I don't see a voice icon by her name. I think she may be video only at the moment. So Julie, we'll move on. But if you get your audio up and running, please. Actually, it looks like you just did that. So anything you'd like to share? And you may still be muted, Julie. Okay, well, Julie, we'll just circle right back to you because I know you guys have a lot of good things going on as well. So at the gold sponsorship level, we have the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center at McLennan Community College. I know that Steve is in the audience. Anything you guys would like to share?
I just want to say that, again, Seth, we appreciate the opportunity to continue sponsoring, and we're just helping small businesses recover from the pandemic one at a time. And like Fred, we'll see how the rest of the day goes with the ice.
That's right. That's right. And also, please tell Tim thank you. He helped us out with some great information about starting small businesses.
Right.
For dummies like ourselves. And so, so please thank him as well for that if you see him. And last but not least, we have our silver sponsor, Capstone Mechanical. Do we have anyone from Capstone? Okay, I'll circle back. Julie, are you able to communicate? Is your microphone working, I should say? I see that it's unmuted, Julie. I think there may be a technical difficulty on my end. Maybe everyone else can hear you. I apologize. We still can't hear you. I see you. Are you joining us by phone as well? Got it. Okay, let's get you set up. I've had to do that many times, so I'm empathetic. Well, Julie, if it's all right with you, we'll go ahead and move on. I apologize. I know that I'm very, again, empathetic. I've been exactly where you are. So, but what we'll do is at the end of the presentation, we'll circle back and give you an opportunity if that's okay. And so a couple of housekeeping items just really quickly. As you've noticed, we're all muted when we log into this forum. So given that, combined with how technical sometimes the subject matter is, I would ask that you guys please shoot us questions. You can put them in the chat. You can send them directly to me. You can send them directly to our speaker, or you can just post them for everyone. Whatever, as the questions occur to you, please post those. And then at the end of the presentation, if they haven't already been answered, we'll gladly field those questions. And so I think with that aside, we can go ahead and move on to the main event. You guys may recall that back in, I think it was the last meeting of 2019, we actually had a presentation on blockchain, and it was a really good summary, just at a very high level of what blockchain is. But that event had so many questions and so much interest that we thought it would be a good idea to go ahead and let's delve a little bit deeper into it and look at some different facets of what blockchain is. It's not just cryptos, and so so that's the purpose of today's presentation. And so I think without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and hand things off to Bryce Jurss, who is the founder and CEO of the Odyssey Project, Inc. And so Bryce, I'll give you the floor.
Thanks, Seth. I'm going to share my screen here. All right, can you all see my screen?
Yes, looks great.
Yes, we can.
Awesome. So, like Seth mentioned, there's a lot of stuff going on around blockchain technology today. There's a lot of stuff in the news recently around cryptocurrency. So I'm going to touch briefly on cryptocurrency, high level, in the beginning of the presentation. Then I'm going to walk us through traditional payment flows, emerging payment flows, and then end with the ways that blockchain is impacting finance as a whole beyond crypto, and then end with kind of the future of digital currency with crypto and also digital fiat currency and what that's going to look like potentially in the future. So diving into crypto, why is crypto currently an asset and not a currency? Crypto is classified by most financial regulatory agencies right now, and at least from a tax perspective, as an asset. There's many reasons behind that, but a big one is, I'm going to touch on, if you're familiar with the coin here on the left, that is the Dogecoin. The Dogecoin was created as a parody coin, kind of as a joke originally. And if you've been following up with the news lately, it, thanks to the group of Reddit users and so forth, has skyrocketed in total market cap, which poses some concerns around crypto in general due to volatility of coins. You may have also noticed recently that Tesla just this week invested 1.5 billion into Bitcoin. And so really the major difference in the today's state of crypto versus fiat currency is your regular US dollar or money that's backed by a government. As many people know, most dollars these days are no longer backed by gold or silver just because there's so much of it. But there's still large economies, militaries, and governments that back the stability of fiat currency. The current issues with crypto and its volatility is it's not stable. And so to make cryptocurrency in general usable in day-to-day business transactions beyond the technology being available is creating additional stability around the value of the currency to be viewed not as an asset, but as a true currency. So the reason why Tesla put so much into Bitcoin is because they are looking to start accepting Bitcoin to buy Tesla vehicles, and they needed to have a buffer in place based on the average volatility of Bitcoin to buffer that type of investment. And so as we start to see the use of cryptocurrencies in everyday market, probably start with larger transactions that are more assets today, such as vehicles, houses, etc. MasterCard actually just announced yesterday that they are planning to accept cryptocurrencies. They haven't announced which ones yet, but for daily merchant transaction use sometime this year. PayPal as well has announced it. More likely with PayPal, their popular Venmo app, which is used for peer-to-peer, person-to-person transactions, will probably start to see cryptocurrency transactions. And then Visa as well, which I'll touch on at the end of the presentation. They have some interesting patents around blockchain and digital currency in general, aside from general cryptocurrency. So that's kind of the quick summary on crypto versus fiat currency. We can answer Q&A at the end because I'm sure there's a lot of current event Q&As possibly around cryptocurrency, but the remainder of this presentation is primarily on traditional payments and how blockchain is affecting them in its current state. So diving into what we would consider traditional payment flows, this is credit card or debit card transactions, ACH transactions, or wire transactions on FedWire. So many of you are business owners and you probably feel the impact of what I like to call the corporate tax that occurs, the extra percentage that you're paying to accept card transactions. These are the middlemen, if you would call them that. We have acquirers, issuers, gateways, ISOs, and then card associations. This is a little bit dated of a snapshot, but primarily so that I can illustrate some of the consolidation that has been occurring in the market. So if we look at acquirers, we have Global Payments here. Global Payments has acquired TSYS, so now they're one company. FIS has acquired WorldPay, they're now one company. And Pfizer has acquired First Data, so they're now one company. So there's been some major consolidation on the acquiring side of the business. These are primarily companies that you as a business owner would interact with in some way, whether it's through a gateway or directly with them in order to accept credit card payments. Then we have the issuers. The issuers are the financial institutions behind the cards. So for example, Visa and MasterCard are the two primary card associations. And so you'll notice, you may have a Citibank card and it's got Visa on it. I do want to note out though, even though they are in this card association bubble, Amex and Discover are a bit different than the traditional MasterCard Visa card. So MasterCard and Visa, they don't control the bank behind the actual funds, whereas American Express is more similar to a closed loop network where Amex is both the card association as well as has controlling interest as an issuing bank behind their credit cards. It's also why you often see that it's more expensive to accept American Express at your business than it is the other cards. And I do want to point out here, UnionPay and Visa continuously go back and forth as the largest payment networks in the world. And that's primarily because UnionPay is a Chinese entity and the largest, if not the primary, card association in China. And so if we also move down here to gateways and ISOs, gateways are typically focused around digital payments, card not present. So when you're transacting businesses online, you're 99% of the time going to be interacting with some type of entity that is a gateway, if not one of these, possibly a reseller of those. And then on the right here with these ISOs, these are independent sales organizations that will be reselling typically an acquiring bank or acquiring service such as global payments or Pfizer's services to you. Each one of these people that are middlemen get a part of that transaction fee, with actually a majority of it going to the banks and the financial institutions. Although it shows Visa, MasterCard, Amex, you may expect a bulk of the transaction fees going to the card associations when really a majority of it does go to the acquiring and issuing banks. So not necessarily to get mad at Visa or MasterCard if the fees are high for a specific card, but actually the issuing banks behind those cards have a lot more control over it. There's one other thing to note on debit cards. There's regulated and unregulated debit transactions. So a bank that has around 10 billion in assets will have unregulated debit, and they can charge substantially more interchange fees on their cards than a regulated financial institution, which I'll touch on a little bit later as well. But in traditional payment flows with cards, these are the main players. So how that looks in a traditional payment cycle, you have the customer, they either present their card in person at some type of terminal, or here would be a gateway if it's online. It then goes to the processor, which would then go to the card network. The card network sends that transaction onto the issuing bank. The issuing bank says, yes, funds are available or they're not available in an authorization transaction. That goes back to the processor. The processor then determines where to send it to the merchant, that the transaction's either been successful or not successful. And then the funds are actually cleared in daily batching, where typically a Fedwire transaction occurs between the issuing bank sending funds to the acquiring bank. And then it can take anywhere from same day to 2 or more business days for those funds to be ACH'd out to your merchant business account. So this is a summarized view of the transaction flow. There's a lot of other little pieces as we look at all those different middlemen and how they come into play, but high level, this is how a typical flow would work. And then we have ACH and Fedwire transactions. ACH transactions are performed by NACHA, where you have an originating bank will send out a batch request or a single ACH request to an ACH operator, which is typically a third-party bank that is associated with the NACHA network. They then send that information to the receiving depository financial institution, and then the funds are available to whomever you're sending funds to, typically in 1 to 2 business days. However, they've been increasing same-day ACH capabilities, as well as increasing the limit on a single same-day ACH transaction that you can send. And so there's a lot of interesting things happening around real-time payments in ACH, but it's still typically the slowest way to send funds to someone. However, it's the least expensive. And then on the right here, we have Fedwire, which is run by the Federal Reserve. You have to be, in order to transact on Fedwire, you have to be a Federal Reserve bank, which are these two here, Fedwire sender and receiver. And then as your bank, depending on if it's a large mega bank or your local community bank, there's a originating financial institution, then possibly an instructing financial institution who interfaces with a Fedwire bank. And then on the receiving side, same thing, there may be an intermediary and beneficiary. And so when you're doing cross-border transactions, also known as remittance, the Federal Reserve Bank is interacting with another bank that is a central government bank with whichever country you're sending funds to. So these are kind of the three main traditional payment funds flows that we see today. And now I'll dive into emerging payments, kind of where things are changing, and then also now how blockchain is affecting both the number of middlemen in traditional transactions, as well as the speed in which payments are settled. So looking at FinTech, and there's many other techs as well, wealth tech, insure tech. They like adding tech to the end of another traditional industry around finance. There are a lot of players. This is just one country's landscape. And so the idea here isn't to be able to see and look through and talk through each one of these, but just to see the massive scale of which there are new companies entering the payment industry and the financial industry to add some type of digital solution or new ways to move payments around. A lot of times they actually just become another middleman. And so I do want to call out right here Chime Bank as a neobank. Chime is one of the largest growing technically financial institutions in the United States. They've gained over 13 million users that are using Chime. To note though, Chime Bank itself is not actually a financial institution. They have two sponsor banks, Stride Bank and Bancorp. Stride Bank and Bancorp actually manage the accounts on the back end and facilitate the movement of funds that are issued or used through Chime Bank. And Chime Bank also has something called getting your paycheck early, 2 days early. What they're doing there is they're just taking, they're intercepting ACH or Fedwire transactions from a recognized either payroll service or business, and they're floating those funds ahead of time at a specified amount based on the transaction history and average account balance of a Chime Bank user. So they're not actually technically getting your paycheck money faster. It's almost as like a type of credit that they're giving you with some float risk for them. So I did want to note that even though there are a lot of fintech companies with a lot of cool, really cool things happening, most of the traditional payment flows, unless it's using a cryptocurrency, are within the traditional payment methods. They may just have some better technology around it. So let's dive into closed loop networks and blockchain. So the main purpose of using blockchain in traditional payment flows is managing and maintaining a ledger with a central trust authority. As Seth mentioned earlier, you talked about blockchain, so you may be familiar with chain code and smart contracts and so forth. In distributed systems like blockchain where there isn't a central trust authority, such as Bitcoin, there's a consensus that is done by whoever's out there mining Bitcoin and maintaining that global public ledger. With a central trust authority in closed loop systems like Visa B2B Connect, Visa is the central trust authority, and then banks A and banks B, which are typically central government banks like the Federal Reserve in the US, or a Federal Reserve Bank, is a trusted entity within the blockchain network that typically has a copy of the chain code, and there's consensus that's done between the closed group of either financial institutions or entities that have the blockchain chain code and can engage with smart contracts between each other to change the balances on the chain code. With Visa B2B Connect, it eliminates the need for all these intermediary financial institutions to move funds between countries, which substantially reduces the cost and time to send international remittance. Then there's also the RoyPay network and many other fintechs that are looking at doing the same thing for consumers paying merchants and other types of B2B transactions within borders to eliminate the middlemen in card transactions or even in ACH transactions, and act as a central trust authority between regionally based financial institutions within a specific country like the United States. And so we also start to see blockchain as well now occurring with larger financial institutions in terms of trading equities and securities. And so Morgan Stanley has some pretty cool patents, and Goldman Sachs is doing some stuff as well to really streamline the intermediaries involved with trading. Many of you may have seen a lot of news around Robinhood and other apps like M1 Finance that allow for retail investors to invest in everyday stocks or invest in cryptocurrencies. And there was a lot of outrage in the news around them stopping trades on GameStop, etc., during the high trading volume that was occurring. It wasn't necessarily that they were trying to protect the hedge funds. What was actually occurring in that situation is entities like Robinhood have to have a certain amount of funds in order to back up the transactions. When you're selling, that is fine. They don't need to back up those trades. But when you are buying, there as well in stock trades, third-party intermediaries who trade on behalf of the retail investors into the market. And so Robinhood had to raise a bunch of funds. So did a lot of these other institutions in order to support all those buy and sell transactions. With blockchain coming, there are ways to start to eliminate some of the intermediaries, even in retail trading, with an immutable ledger, which will bring me into what is the value proposition overall of blockchain in finance. And it is because it is transparent, immutable, and secure. And immutable just means that it can't be deleted. So in a typical database structure, you can delete a transaction. You can delete the history. If someone were to hack into a financial institution or one of these card brands and they're using a traditional database structure, they do have the ability to delete an entire account if they wanted to, or delete an entire flow of transactions. With blockchain, it's immutable. They can only update a transaction or put in new transactions, but there's a clear history that is with the identifier on each entry using SHA 256 encrypted IDs, which is very, 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 very hard, if not impossible, depending on where technology is moving to decrypt or hack. And so with this immutability and transparency of everyone within the either public ledger or with a central trust authority being able to see at any time and go back and audit those financial transactions, there's a huge value proposition for blockchain being secure as well as very easy to audit overall. But this creates some obstacles primarily around scale up and scale out. And so when you're scaling out, you're adding additional servers. When you're scaling up, you're increasing the amount of memory or RAM that a server has. And so when we're talking about financial transactions like a credit card transaction, it has to be done in, well, at the longest, 2 to 3 seconds, but typically in milliseconds. There has to go through all of the middlemen or people involved to return a response, approve or deny a transaction, or it could get timed out by the network and the transaction could just automatically be denied. And so one of the issues with blockchain has been around speed. How do we create enough power behind the transaction flow to maintain the same speeds as today's technology? And so with that, there's many different frameworks and managed services that are open source that you can use to build your own blockchain and then innovate on top of. Dreams Tech Solutions, which I have the link at the end, has a really good article on the 6 blockchain frameworks that are used by most entities to build on top of. But then there are solutions like Amazon QLDB, which is a kind of a hybrid approach to blockchain that's blockchain based, but it uses some traditional hybrid database structure as well to get the speed that's needed by most financial transactions. And Amazon also has their managed blockchain as well. And so Google Cloud Platform, Microsoft, Oracle are all coming out with different types of blockchain technologies as well that are either managed or in some way on their cloud platforms. And so with that, I'm going to touch briefly on the future of digital currency. So Visa has filed a patent that will allow any kind of centralized government or entity to take a fiat currency like a US dollar, take that serial number and the amount of that denomination, have it entered into a system, which then creates a digital representation of that fiat currency, and then a system for removing that physical currency from circulation. And so this could be done at any Federal Reserve mint in the US. So up in Dallas, for example, when they're getting in old currency that is scheduled to be destroyed and new currency printed, instead of printing new currency and putting new currency into circulation when they're destroying the old currency, they could take the old fiat currency, create new serial numbers and denominations representative of that they're destroying, and issue it as a true digital currency without a physical counterpart in the circulation of the US dollar. This is very interesting and a possible great solution to maintain the benefits of a traditional fiat currency, that it's backed by a government, typically a military, and typically a stable economy. And so this could be a solution in lieu of the cryptocurrencies that we see today that has true stability backed by a government entity. And so that is all I have for you today. Here's some sources and additional resources. I have a lot more resources as well. And this is just a high level overview of many, many different topics and tried to be non-technical. So there's just a brief understanding, but basically overall, the power of blockchain is helping to reduce the number of middlemen in the transactions, increase the both security and speed of flow of the settlement of transactions, and hopefully overall reduce the amount of fees it costs to accept transactions as a business. So I can take questions now.
Great.
Bryce, can you give us a little bit about your background, your personal story and your background, please?
Yeah, I've been in payments. I'm young, but I've been in investing for around 16 years now. And I've worked with payments and digital technologies for the last 6 years, creating both traditional payment flows and merchant service solutions, as well as blockchain technology as well. Our company, the Odyssey project, is partnered with Visa, many technologies, and there are a lot of different things going on in the payment industry that I'm involved with in some way. I also went to Baylor and visit Waco often, just to put in a plug there for Waco, one of the universities here in Waco.
Great. Thank you, Bryce. And so, yes, everyone, please, let's get those questions out there. I know you have questions. There is no such thing as a dumb question. And so please feel free to post those. Actually, at this stage, if you guys would like to, since we haven't had a surge, feel free to just unmute and ask your question. No need to even post it in chat, and or you can post it in chat. Whatever works for you. because I know that I have a few questions. So let's get those out there. This is a very interesting topic, and the repercussions. And in fact, the digital fiat currency, that's intriguing. I almost, Bryce, could you expand on that point just a little bit more about the repercussions or the implications of that tech?
Yeah, so basically I use the US Federal Reserve as an example, but any centralized government could take any traditional fiat currency and convert it into a digital currency. So any currency on the FINTECH exchange that it has some type of stability. Obviously, fiat currency itself fluctuates, but it's a lot more stable. And so for a business to be able to accept a digital currency, they're going to want some type of, I would, if I was running a restaurant, some type of knowledge or guarantee that I accept this money from you, it's going to hold that value within the next second, right? And so the issues with a lot of the cryptocurrencies today, even with Bitcoin being somewhat more stable, is it can fluctuate greatly. And Doge, for example, which it was made as a kind of this parody coin, wasn't made to be a utility. You had a little bit of Doge because it was fun to have. But now that people are transacting with Doge, it brings up this interesting question. Like, there's this huge fluctuation. It went from fractions of a cent to almost 10 cents the other day and then back down. If I'm a business and I just gave you food, some type of good, and you gave me 10 cents of Doge, and now an hour later, that 10 cents of Doge is now 5 cents, 4 cents. That creates a lot of potential issues in what the trust is. So by having a digital version of a fiat currency that's actually physically removing a US dollar from the whole pool of US dollars into a digital way, you can have that same stability of that currency and accept it as a business, knowing and trusting that that digital currency, you'll be able to transact for other goods as well. And there's also not the tax repercussions as with crypto. If you have a cryptocurrency and you want to convert it to a fiat US dollar, there's typically tax implications because it's currently viewed as an asset today, which is also a concern for people that were doing Dogecoin or Bitcoin over the last few weeks. There's been huge gains. If I want to convert that now to US dollar, and there's been a substantial increase, there's capital gains tax repercussions to doing that.
Well, let me ask a question, Bryce. With your crystal ball, it sounds like a lot of this is starting to become mainstream. Where do you see the future? I mean, it's still on the fringes, I think. I know more people are interested. Do you see this as the way, the digital currency replacing all currencies in the next 5, 10, 20 years, or is this just still on the radar?
Yeah, I definitely see there continuing to be a push for digital currency. And with everything that happened with COVID and the way to do contactless transactions and the ability for digital currency to streamline and make that a faster solution, I think there's been a large push from the industry. I can't predict for sure if it will be the cryptocurrency that we see today being the form of digital currency. I see something like the Visa patent being something more usable in everyday business to replace it. And really all it is we kind of already use a lot of digital currency today in the fact that we are using digital transactions and just updating in a ledger. And that's why I wanted to touch on blockchain in general, of how it can just improve existing traditional payment flows, reducing the number of middlemen involved and really shortening the space between the financial institutions. And so a lot of these, what I called like middlemen, where they are not moving funds. Most of them don't have payment facilitation licenses. Most of them are not financial institutions. They are just data processors. And that's why they're referred to as processors. And so they are just processing the data across the ledger. They're not actually moving the funds. When the funds are actually moving, it's typically being done through Nacho with ACH or Fedwire. Visa itself doesn't actually move funds. They use Fedwire transactions to do those batch transactions at the end of the day. And so ultimately, if we can have centralized ledger systems in some type of form of digital currency, it may gain greater access to more people. But also, why I mentioned Chime Bank, there's a lot of companies out there saying that they're working on financial inclusion to give more people access, but there's still a handful of large banks that control most of the payment flows that happen in this country. Wells Fargo is one of the largest acquirers. If you're accepting credit card payments, merchants who can accept payments, a lot of it's determined by either Wells Fargo's underwriting department, Chase's underwriting department. There's still a very limited amount of scope of who determines which business can accept payments or not. And that is concerning. And so the idea behind cryptocurrencies or other digital currencies is allowing other financial institutions that don't necessarily have the trillions of dollars of assets under management like Wells Fargo, but will be given resources to allow more people access overall to the financial market. I hope that kind of answers part of the question.
In other words, don't rush out and just convert everything to digital currency. Wait a little bit.
Yeah, and another thing around Bitcoin too, and just cryptos in general, a lot of it is buy and hold mentality. A lot of people don't want to go use their Bitcoin to buy stuff. They want to hold on to it, similar to how they'd hold on to a stock for a long-term gain. But yeah, I definitely wouldn't necessarily change all of my US dollar to crypto today until there's at least some more stability in the market. But yeah, I mean, it is an investment, and some people are making lots of money and some people are losing lots of money investing into crypto. And so it's definitely something to be cautious about and do your research before just diving in and buying a bunch of cryptocurrency.
Hey, Bryce, got a question for you on the Odyssey project. Talk a little bit about how y'all are using the blockchain. Have you developed your own blockchain, or are you using some utility chains, or how does that work?
Yeah, we built our own solution on top of open source technologies like Hyperledger, and we're using blockchain primarily right now for B2B transactions on our ledger, as well as our Roy card. So with the Roy card, when you swipe on one of the Roy cards, we are acting as a financial institution with our sponsor banks, similar to Chime, on the back end, and maintaining that ledger using blockchain. Although we're actually looking at everything, we may be pausing the Roy card temporarily, and then looking at increasing the B2B transaction flows, as it seems like there's a lot more opportunity there to implement a closed loop network to allow businesses to buy stuff from their suppliers faster in an easier way. But we're continuing to try to find new and unique ways to use blockchain. We have a provisional patent that we filed around blockchain that we're looking right now to get our full patent on, that uses blockchain, but more in emerging markets in places that don't have internet access, but do have cell service like 3G, 5G, or just regular cell service to transact payments.
Explain the difference between the cryptocurrency and then the utility coins that we see on the blockchain.
Yeah, so the cryptocurrency like Dogecoin it's a coin that has some type of market cap. The utility coins are made in a way that you can build something with them. And so they've been used in supply chain to represent the exchange of value throughout a supply chain, and used almost as an investment, as well as I can use this coin for something. And so it's with an ICO, an initial coin offering, it's actually a different way for a company to raise funds outside the traditional stock market with a lot lower barrier to getting that coin. And then when they create a utility, they use it for either some type of exchange within their network or services, or within another form of blockchain. So for example, Ethereum or Ether has a utility where I can use that as an open source blockchain and build some type of technology on top of it that uses a ledger-based system, where there's this utility of being able to use it beyond just coin representation, if that makes sense. That kind of
yeah. And so are a lot of those open source systems with the utility coins? I mean, is that something y'all have utilized, or?
So we've used Hyperledger, which is just a blockchain framework. It doesn't have a specific coin associated with it. But yeah, most, if not I'd say almost all of them, of cryptocurrencies or coins in general, have some type of open source framework where you can use to either, some of them you can actually create coin, but utilize it in some way. Like, for example, Doge has a very small website, but you can build a Doge system to mine Dogecoin and be part of that network.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Bryce, we did receive one question. Could you may recall, and in fact, I know that you'll have a good response for this. Back in 2019, I believe, is when the Libra conversation was taking place with Facebook. How does that compare to what Visa is proposing? How does that, combined with all these other discussions about possibly federally backed digital, currency? How does all that work? Or what specifically, what is your thought about the Libra concept where a private entity is doing this?
Yeah, so what Facebook was trying to do is they were trying to get the card associations on board to use their network. They were trying to create the Libra coin, and then they were trying to support the stability of the Libra coin using a Switzerland bank, I believe. And so they were trying to, which has been done by other coins too, either backing the value of a coin and trying to tie it as close as possible to the value of gold or to the value of a fiat currency, so that there is stability around the exchange of that coin, right? I think there's something called like Bitcoin Gold, right, which is tried to be very close to the value of gold. And so what Facebook was trying to do with Libra was create a coin, but also something that could be used as a utility, as a way of exchange within the Facebook platform as a whole, whether it's through WhatsApp, Facebook Messenger, Facebook Marketplace, etc. That's what they were trying to do with Libra, possibly still trying to do, right? But they've run into regulatory obstacles, at least from the US government, and it was really bad timing with their data privacy stuff before Congress. And so there was some trust issues involved with how much they trust this entity to protect the exchange of that digital currency. The difference of what Visa is doing is, one, Visa has a lot of trust. Trust is huge if it's going to be a private entity at all involved. Visa does have a lot of trust, and they have very secure networks that follow all of the PCI guidelines around both payment data as well as PII, which is personally identifying information, protecting, and a long history of protecting people's social security numbers, their date of birth, things like that. And so they also have large strategically located data centers around the world. Some are known, some are not known. You can't even see them on a map, that protect the data that is flowing through their network. And so for an entity like Visa to come in with a way to exchange a real digital currency and to have either the lobbyists or the political value to go to a government and say, hey, we're going to help stand up this way of digital currency within your centralized banking system, is a lot different approach than Libra. And so the kind of clashing that's been occurring in general between cryptos and the traditional payment markets is there are huge incumbents with huge market caps and trillions of assets under management. And the current cryptos like Bitcoin go completely against and cut out those middlemen. Facebook tried to go a little bit step closer by trying to involve some of the incumbent players in the market. But by Visa coming in as a large incumbent with relationships with the Federal Reserve and central government, they have a lot more, I guess, viability to pull this off in a way of exchange with a digital currency than some of the cryptos today.
Excellent explanation. Thank you. Great. Okay. Do we have any other questions?
I'm curious, being due to been following this on the periphery, the cyber attacks and the interest in cyber. I would imagine that's always fear, but I know that the system has a lot of redundancies and measures in place. Can you address a little bit about that? What is the vulnerability there, and what type of measures do you know of?
Yeah, so one of the huge benefits of crypto and blockchain today in general is the high level of encryption and just the identifiers of a transaction to a transaction. There are concerns around quantum computing and whether or not the processing power of quantum computers can easily hack or decipher the identifiers of transactions or manipulate them in some way. The thing about quantum computing is that quantum computing is different than a traditional computer in that it is an approximation of the zeros and ones that are occurring within a system. It's more physiological in nature than traditional computing. And so it takes a lot of resources and algorithms to determine what's actually happening with a quantum computer. And so quantum computing may be great for understanding weather patterns or optimizing multiple routes, like the traveling salesman example, where there's a person that's traveling to 29 different destinations and trying to find the most optimal route all at one time. You can create cheating algorithms around it, but for a computer to compute that today, it takes a lot of processing power to do all 29 real-time optimal routes. That's something where quantum computing could help solve, but to in real time hack every single type of transaction going through a blockchain and manipulate it, we don't foresee quantum doing that as a utility. So there's a lot of security that's still there with the blockchain, but in terms of the overall systems and network, there's always going to be every day new types of cyber threats, and it's always going to be a huge investment. And that's also why, so Visa, if you actually look at like their K10s and where their revenue is coming from, they don't make a lot of money off of just like the payment processing or even the percentage APR on your credit card. A lot of that goes towards paying towards risk and cybersecurity, and that's why Visas and MasterCard are these larger card associations, and what the value is they're providing to the financial institutions is continuous investment in cybersecurity. They're competing with the NSA, US Cyber Command, foreign governments, intelligence agencies for talent, so that they can have the best, you could call them like good hackers, right, on their team to fight against cyber threats. But blockchain does have the potential to reduce the overall threat, not eliminate it. You'll never, I would say, never be able to 100% prevent against a cyber attack. There's always new things happening every day, and it's about being proactive.
Great, very good questions, good conversation. Do we have any other questions from anyone else before we wrap things up? We have a few minutes left. And if not, I think we are going to give Julie, is your microphone up and running?
Yes, sir, it is.
Excellent.
Oh, absolutely. Sorry for the delay earlier. Just thank you so much for the opportunity to be able to sponsor and work with you as we move forward in the Waco area. I'm not new to McLean, but I've recently taken over Central Texas into my region. So you'll see quite a bit more of me as the days and months proceed, and as we're able to open up a little further to in-person meetings versus virtual. For those of you who are not overly familiar with McLean, I thought I'd just take a few moments and give you a little bit of background. We're a managed service provider. Over the last 22 years, we've developed really a strong presence locally and throughout Texas. Additionally, over the last 5 to 10 years, been able to stretch out our services from coast to coast. And by being able to do that, it really enables us to have a broadened view of what the industry requires and demands. And the fact that you're in this setting today is that, you know, technology and security are very important to you. So while managed services is really an anchor for us, we go far beyond that into software development and integration and cybersecurity. We also hold HIPAA and SOC 1, SOC 2 certifications, and this allows us to cover most all aspects of business. Really being able to understand a business's need for constant growth and technology allows us to not only stay on pace, but to also enable us to be able to work with with you and with businesses, be able to provide strategic planning as your business grows. And I know I only have a few moments, so that's all I'm really going to take of your time today, but I do look forward to the opportunity to being able to meet with each of you individually as time goes on. And I just hope that you stay warm and safe over the next few days, because I know here in Central Texas, it is going to get pretty ugly. But thank you for your time. Thank you, Seth.
Absolutely. Thank you, Julie. And Bryce, thank you so much for your time today. Betsy, thank you. Big thanks to everyone who's able to join us today. And we have already scheduled the next meeting. And so, so you'll see us again in May. And just a quick shout out again to our sponsors, as you know, McLean Intelligent Solutions. Thank you again, Julie. And L3 Harris. And then we have our gold sponsor, which is the SBDC, the Small Business Development Center at McLennan Community College. And then our silver sponsor, which is Capstone Mechanical. So with that, I think we will go ahead and call it right on time. So again, a big thank you to Bryce. If you guys need his contact info, let me know. You can reply back to anyone at the chamber and we'll get you guys in touch. Thank you all.
Thank you, Seth.
Thank you, Seth. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye-bye.